So I'm a director and I'm on the council's management team, and it's important, I think, for the organisation for a number of really important reasons. I mean, the first of all is actually to make sure that all our staff are valued and that we are dealing with any issues which actually confront anyone. And sometimes in an organisation this size, we've got 14,000 staff. It's not always easy to kind of know what's actually happening in the direct front line. So actually these staff networks really are a really good way of engaging and hearing what the issues are and then finding out what the problems are so we can actually deal with them. I suppose the second part of that is trying to create an inclusive workforce, which is not only good for the people who work here, but actually is more reflective of our city, which also gives us insights into what people in our city need. And I think maybe the third aspect of it is trying to make sure the voices come through. So again, it's not just about being inclusive; it's also about being creative. So having a range of voices, a range of perspectives, so that we can actually come up with the best solutions.
So I think there's a challenge for me as a straight woman championing the LGBT network because sometimes and quite often there's a lack of understanding about the role of an ally. So you don't necessarily need to share someone's protected characteristic in order to champion that protected characteristic within the workplace. So last year I had, my car was very dirty, I'm ashamed to say, and someone wrote gay across my car in the staff car park. So we handled that in a very particular way. So I didn't handle it in a how very dare you kind of way, but in our chief executive's blog, he wrote, Rafaela Goodby would like to have a cup of tea with the person whoever wrote gay on her car so that we can talk about the role of allies in supporting LGBT colleagues or anyone else with a protected characteristic. So try to treat it in a light-hearted way. And I think when you put yourself out there, either as a senior champion, as an ally, or talking about things which often people find difficult to talk about because they've not talked about it for a while, I think you do come under some criticism. And so I would encourage anybody as a senior sponsor or as an ally to actually put yourself out there and have the conversations. And it's okay to make mistakes and get it wrong or use the wrong language because that's how we learn. And that's how we can learn more about each other and about our organisations and bring that richness of diversity to what we're trying to do for our patients.
My message to any public sector organisation or any private business who doesn't have champions for different sections of the community would be, how do you know what your customers from each community want? How do you know how people that use your service from each community wants? Who have you got for speaking up for different communities to make sure that you've been make sure that your services are right, what you're doing is right, that in a big and diverse city like Leeds, that you're actually serving the whole community. If you're a public service, that's about making sure people are treated fairly. If you're a business, it's about making sure that everybody that could be a customer feels comfortable being a customer. So that would be my challenge to organisations that don't take on the champions.
Please think about it seriously and think that the benefit of having allies to any staff network is going to bring. It gives a kudos to all the networks to have somebody as a senior sponsor or senior ally, that's someone that's on your side. And the benefits that allies bring, the benefit that all staff networks bring to any organisation cannot be underestimated. If you're trying to recruit and people look at your website and they see that you have well-formed and well-established networks, it's going to encourage talent. It's going to encourage diverse talent into any organisation, and that's what the country needs. It's not just what the organisation needs, it's what everyone needs. It needs diverse people in the workplace. and for them to be recognised, and people's passion, what people stand for in networks, it needs to be recognised across organisations.
An effective champion of a network is really important because they can open a whole number of doors to some great work. So for example, over the past few years, our senior leadership team have made some really strong commitments personally around the part they're going to play to support the networks. And that's not just in terms of making sure the networks have got a good profile and opportunities to share their ideas, but that's also about making some personal commitments to help those networks deliver change. So for example, our chief executive has taken a real keen interest in disability network and is working really close with them to make some real changes happen.
Working with allies to get the message out there. In several of our organisations, for example, we've seen rainbow lanyards have a huge take-up, and that provides a real boost of visibility for what's actually a fairly small network. Then with other networks, we've seen allies really help shift the agenda. So a lot of our women's networks across the business have shifted to become gender equality networks over the last few years, really understanding that if you stop pushing women's issues and start talking about how the way that we work impacts on everybody, about the importance of creating a culture, for example, where fathers feel that they can take time off to look after their young children, then there are benefits for everybody. So I would say that one of the real areas that we've seen allies having an impact on is on gender equality, where we're now starting to see more men join those gender equality networks and actually take part as well in the executive teams.
In respect of allies, or what some people refer to as non-intrinsic owners of the issue, I think it's absolutely important to involve those groups from the get-go. The reality is that in the workplace we have different people from different backgrounds, and the whole advent recently of intersectionality talks about the fact that we are, all of us, each of us, more than one thing. I think that an ally strategy, and it's personally something that I have determined in my own mind and heart to focus on as a priority this year, 2018, is to involve, in the case of race and race equality, more white people in the journey as we travel. I think that when we look at the demographics of any organisation, it is made up of, to different degrees and different percentages, of course, but it's made up of black and white people. And to force the debate through a binary lens is in itself exclusionary. It is to neglect or to oversimplify the need for us to include everybody in this journey. It's not a secret, it's not a surprise to anyone that very often the perceived victim of a racist slur may not be present at a given moment when it is dispatched, when it occurs. But if in building our ally strategy we can have white advocates that will stand up and talk about the offence they feel when a racist remark is made by a white person towards a black person, that's when I think we'll start winning. When the perceived victim is not present, but that someone else stands up for what's wrong. So it's the man that stands up and says to another man, you are being offensive to women. And when challenged to say, well, there are no women here, to say that doesn't mean it's not offensive to me. That's when we will start winning this debate around inclusion and around how we can make the workplace a fairer and a more equitable one.